My name is Farzanna, and I'm 23 years old. We don't have porn websites in Iran. We have erotic fiction. There are sites with collections of stories, illustrations, photographs. He trailed off. Like what? I asked. What did you read? He started. There are stories where a husband rips his wife's hijab off and fucks her. He continued, and there was one with a young boy looking through a window into a living room, watching an uncle fucking his young niece on a table as punishment. He beat her, and when he was finished, he threatened, "I'll fuck you dry next time," as a warning before he left the room, with her still on the table and with the boy outside still watching. There was a delight in his eyes, a pleasure, and I'll never forget the look he gave me after he recounted that story. This conversation happened in Harlem 3 years ago. Intimate partner violence is unlike domestic violence in that it encompasses far more than what domestic violence does. It entails psychological, emotional, financial, sexual, and other forms of abuse. Intimate partner violence is most certainly a reality that is faced by Muslim women within our community, as well as young children. I am a survivor of intimate partner violence and repeated sexual assaults. From the years of 2014 to the end of 2015, I was in what's known as a nikah muta'a, and this is a fixed-term marriage or a pleasure marriage in the Shia sect of Islam, and this marriage was between me and an Iranian student here in New York City. We are zealous, we are eager to be up in arms to defend ourselves, our ways of life, when confronted with Islamophobia, Islamophobes, and Islamophobic rhetoric. We don't want to be the caricatures that they convey or portray of us. We want to staunchly defend the way that we perceive the world, the way that we think, the way that we smell, the way that we taste, the way that we look. But often I question, where are we when it comes to defending, supporting, validating the narratives of individuals within our own community? No, it is not often an issue of us versus them, as it is an issue of us versus each other. Why is it that the women within our community, the women survivors of trauma and violences within our community, are compelled and are coerced into sanitizing and swallowing their narratives of abuse, when these narratives deeply affect the trajectories of their lives, for their lives? Why is it that the perpetrators of said abuse, of these abuses, why are these perpetrators celebrated, welcomed, adorned, enabled, coddled, and supported not only by the men of this ummah, but by the women of this ummah? Learning to cope with interacting and nurturing other survivors is something that is still a work in progress for me. I haven't fully developed the tools necessary to work with survivors because I am still actively working with myself. And the hardest part about being an on-call advocate is seeing someone in whom you can see yourself. And as much as you try to pick out the pieces with them and nurture them and speak with them and try to console them in that moment, it never erases what happened to you. And you know that no matter how much you smile at and console them, it's not going to erase what happened to them. And I think acceptance of the violence that we experience is one of the hardest parts of being a survivor. The Islamic Center at NYU was hosting a halaqah called Breaking Silence, where 3 survivors of intimate partner violence and childhood sexual abuse sat with Khalid Latif and shared their narratives to a room of almost 100 brothers and sisters. And we all sat on the ground, and you could feel the tension in the room as the survivors described what they experienced and how there was no happy ending. They were still actively suffering the traumas that they experienced as children, as young adults, as college students. And there were so many brothers in the room, there were so many sisters in the room, and we were all sitting on the floor together, mourning together the lives and the joys lost by these women. And it was these 3 women who inspired me to go public with my narrative. I spoke with one of them at the end of the halaqah, and I told her everything that happened to me. It was the first time there was someone in a Muslim space sharing her experiences, and she was never questioned if she was any less Muslim than the imam sitting next to her. And I told her what I experienced, and she promised to help me, and she did. It's ever since then that I felt that Islam understood me, that Allah understood what I was experiencing, that I suddenly wasn't another, that my iman and my deen are very much aspects of my identity. My spirituality is an aspect of my identity that is intrinsically mine, and my survivorship is not mutually exclusive to that.